just want to read first.
This meeting is being recorded.
Just in case anyone is curious, this meeting is being recorded. So welcome everybody to Passo's Tradecraft Week. I just want to read a little preamble here. Today's session is a roundtable panel presentation focusing on life as an MCO. It's interesting because I'm looking through the list here of attendees, and I think, unless I'm missing some names, at least half of you are MCOs. So I'm curious, curious what questions you have for the day in the life of an MCO, being MCOs. But we'll have some fun anyways. Reminder, as the Zoom just very loudly told us, the session is being recorded. It'll be posted to PAFSO's YouTube channel at a later date. And we want to acknowledge that PAFSO is hosting the Tradecraft Week on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin, Anishinaabe people. PAFSO acknowledges them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. Thank you very much for allowing me that preamble. And yeah, Marie-Ève and I, when we spoke about this, like many of you have many different tasks going on right now and hats to wear. And we thought a Q&A session on what is it like to be an MCO would be a good way for us to participate. Like I said, I expected more non-MCOs from the PAFSO community to take advantage and say, okay, what do we ever wanted to ask an MCO that we never got to? But it's great that we have so many other ones on the line, because now we can turn to them for answers as well. But as Marty said at the beginning there's a Q&A, so ask any questions you want there if you want, but if not, mics are unlocked, speak up, ask anything you want. And Marie-Ève and I are here to speak about our MCO experience. Maybe I'll quickly turn it over to Marie-Ève to give a quick off the top of her head bio, and then I'll do the same, and then we'll turn it over to you guys.
Sounds good. So as Collin said, we just decided to keep this pretty formal. My name is Marie-Ève Lamy, and I am currently posted as MCO in Los Angeles, California. I am starting my 4th year in Los Angeles, which is an interesting posting as a medium-sized mission. And so, when you're not in a big mission, you kind of have a bit more on your shoulders and kind of responsible for all the different section that falls under the MCO umbrella. So this is what I call a post where you learn a lot, but more on the difficult side when you're trying to accomplish new things as you're constantly busy. I was posted as MCO again back in 2010 in Denver, which at that time was considered a small mission. And my role at that mission was to actually work on the transition of the financial services from the mission to the slowly introduced CSDP model, what in the US started as the quadrant, and then eventually all financial services being sent to Washington. So this was quite interesting to focus on a very specific project, and also as a small mission, again, being very close to the head of mission as the right arm in kind of walk him through at that time, a lot of difficult scenarios. So that's basically what I did in terms of abroad. I completed a TD in Lima, Peru as the MCO to help with the workload at some point. And then other than that, I worked at HQ in consular area, HR and finance, which I consider these being my specialties. So that's basically what I have to say about myself, and we'll turn over to Collin.
Perfect. So I am currently the MCO in Santo Domingo, which is my first full program manager post. I'd say we're small, medium-sized mission. So we're 8 CVS, 30, 25-ish, let's say LAS within our network. We run an on-con office in Puerto Plata and another small consulate focused on consular affairs in Punta Cana. Previous to this, I was in Delhi, our biggest, I believe it's in terms of staff, is our biggest mission in the world. Although that's, I'm sure, in a state of flux with the top 5 always. There I was DMCO property. It's sort of a huge team, 70-ish property employees and contractors. And that was a unique experience to work at one of our biggest missions. Previous to that, one of our medium-sized missions, I was at Sao Paulo, which is where I started my career. And I have been, other than one small paternity leave and language training year previous to this posting in Canada, I'm almost a decade without going back to headquarters. So I rely on stuff like this to stay connected and you know, meet people from outside of, or from Ottawa, or from outside of a broad MCO circle. And that's my background. Marie-Ève and I, we should both say, are MCO CC members. For those of you who are MCOs, you'll hopefully be familiar with the MCO Consultative Committee. So we are an informal and volunteer committee to represent, used basically to represent MCOs' views from the field and from headquarters to upper management, and kind of act as a communication conduit between the cadre as a whole and upper management. So yeah, we'll turn it over to you guys. Ask any questions you want about our individual careers, our views on MCO life in general, or anything you've ever wanted to ask an MCO and didn't have the chance to. Et comme d'habitude, tu peux demander des questions en français aussi. On va répondre en la langue de la question. Et pour Marie-Ève, ça serait beaucoup plus facile parce que moi, j'ai espagnol et français durant toute la journée, et comme vrai anglophone, ça me cause des défis des fois. Mais à vous. And radio silence.
Just a reminder for anyone, if you want to ask a question, you can use the Q&A feature, or just raise your hand and I can turn on your microphone.
Maybe can I ask a question if nobody else has one? Or oh, I see something in the chat. Oh, that's Marty just reminding everybody that they can raise their hand. I always like to ask my MCO colleagues, because you guys are the ones who see the you know, everything that goes on at a mission and all of the weird things that we all do. I am wondering, what is the weirdest thing that you have ever seen, that you've seen so far in your career as MCOs? That, I mean, or something, the most unexpected thing, like I never thought I would have to deal with blah.
I mean, I can go on and one example just to kick this off. Like, I don't want to go too much into details, because we do see, personally, I've seen very weird things that I never thought I would have to handle. But the one thing I noticed is it seems like every week there's a team, and I don't know if it's the universe that is sending this to me, but like one week it can be like very focused property, and then there's just like issues properties related. And even though like there's not much going on in that, you know, in that property section on a regular basis, and then the week after that will be boom, like a week full of like HR conflicts, and then it seems like people just can't get along, and then you're like handling multiple conflicts in between employees, and it seems like it never ends. And so it's kind of funny how things work out. And personally, I've had some weird conversation happening when I had the mission that had to do with like hygiene and like issues with bathrooms, and then people behaviors, which I never thought I would have to handle as an MCO. But I think it's kind of a good reminder that as people who are actually managing an office, like, you know, sometimes small things is something that you need to dedicate time, because it is causing some issues to other, you know, some distress. And then it's also having to consider the different level, like as MCOs, and I know Collin is also on the rapid deployment team. We're pretty tough in terms of what we've seen and what we can handle. And so I think it's important for us to take a step back and realize that not everyone is used to be exposed to things like this and to handle things like this. And so like we have to accept that, like, for some people it might be more difficult to handle, you know, a weird situation that will happen in the restroom, and you're like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about it, you know, we'll take it from there. So for me, this is some of the weird stuff that I knew would come with the package, but I didn't think that was really happening in an office. But when it's a small office, it kind of affects everyone directly. So this is my weirdest thing, and it's been going on for like the past month, so it's very fresh right now. So
I can give you one and I'll take all the names in the mission out, because it's, it is personal. We see as MCOs we get a lot of questions, we get a lot of requests that we would sometimes classify as potentially entitled, or what I like to remind people of is if the person's asking, they think it's a legit request. So we'll get it, and I keep some of these in my head as a good chuckle every once in a while, or when we're as MCOs sitting around a beer and exchanging stories. But my absolute favorite I've been asked for, and I'll remind everyone, this was in their mind, the person asking, a legit request, something they really wanted, and they didn't see why maybe we wouldn't do that. So on one of my missions, actually in all missions all over the world, we have a responsibility to take care of the lawns up to a certain size of our SQs. And I was asked in an SQ if the mission would replace all of the grass in the lawn with artificial turf so that the CVS did not have to repair or take care of their lawn. And that was by far the most, to me, going, somebody actually managed to think about that and thought it was a good request. So that was my favorite that I've gotten. That was a very easy no, but I sat down with the client and explained to them, listen, this is taxpayer dollars. We can't really spend taxpayer dollars to replace your lawn with artificial turf just so you don't have to mow it or pay a housekeeper, or not housekeeper, pay a gardener. But that was the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever been asked. And it was a good one.
I had
Made
the
me
same
laugh.
request, so it's not abnormal.
Yeah, fun one, right? But to give one that's a little bit more, interesting and recent, this happened to me on Friday, and it'll highlight to you the difference between what it is to be in Canada as a public servant, working in our local environment and local culture, and what it can be in a different country. So me and my vice consul were at a meeting on Friday with the Vice Minister of Consular Affairs to discuss a couple consular cases, and because he was new in the position, so our first courtesy visit. And about 10 minutes into the meeting, there's a knock on his door, and he stops us. He says, "Oh, I'm expecting a really special guest. Just give me a second." We're like, "Okay, no problem." Like, he'll say hi to his guest, and then we'll finish our meeting, and then it'll move on from there, and he'll meet whoever his guest is. So he opens the door and welcomes his guests into the room, into his office. Okay, again, fine, it's your office. He introduces them to us. It's the president's mother and the president's sister, the president of the Dominican Republic. And then he invited them to come sit down at the table in his office to just hang out while we finished our meeting. So me and my DMCO, my vice consul, looked at each other and went, so now we have to talk about sensitive DR cases in front of the president's mother and sister. And this is already very awkward and weird, because what are we supposed to say? What are we not supposed to say? But for them, it was like totally normal. It was, they're the president's family. They can basically go wherever they want. And it turned out to be great because, they were very much on Team Canada. So every time we would talk about something, they would turn to the vice minister and say, hey, you really need to, help these guys with this or look into this case. So we turned it into quite the positive. But it was a bit weird to be sitting there with, the mother. She's not a politician. She has no political role, but she's there at our high level political meeting, and the sister. And then for a little extra fun on the way out, he asked me, the vice minister, do you smoke puros? Which in various different countries in Spanish has a different meaning. And I wasn't the fastest when he said, do you smoke puros? I was like, I don't smoke cigarettes. Do I smell like cigarettes? I don't think he means cigarettes. And then, being Canadian, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's not asking me if I want to smoke something else. And it clicked. Oh my God, he's asking about cigars. But it was one of those experiences where I was like, I don't really know what the hell he's asking me, and I need to respond something, and I'm not sure what to do. So we get all kinds of, interesting, culturally specific experiences like that. And so those are one that happened recently, and one that was probably still the top of my mind as the most interesting request I've gotten. Julie, I think I saw your hand up first. You guys can take your unless you have background noise, put your microphones on and ask away, and we'll keep it super informal.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm sorry, I have no idea how to turn my camera on. So yeah, just this disembodied voice coming from nowhere. Thank you for this. And this is wonderful timing for me personally. I am not an MCO, but I just started a couple months ago an assignment in C Branch. So I'm learning more and more about the wonderful world of MCOs and the wide, well, I already knew the wide variety of amazing work that you guys are doing. But I'm curious to know, both from you, and I don't know if there's some way to also draw from other participants here who have consular experience, but given the complex and honestly unique skill set that MCOs need, skill sets, plural, And also, given that we have so many gaps, so many vacancies, so many challenges in recruiting, what kinds of experiences do you think we should be targeting when seeking new MCOs? And based on your discussions with other MCOs, consular people from other countries, etc., what are some ideas you have about where we could find these people? Are there certain programs, certain universities or colleges, etc.? Just interested in picking your brain on that.
Sure. I can jump in there first because this is a question I've been asked by many of our non-MCO colleagues before, especially as they've finished their first posting and they recognize we have the opportunity to be out because of the gap between our needs and our actual staffing levels. We have the opportunity to be out for longer and for more postings. So we often get asked, or I've often been asked by other program colleagues, you know, what can I do it? Can I do the job? You know, it's the way they always term it. And I always answer the same thing to them, because on a whole, we hire intelligent people, and I say, yeah, you can do the job. You're an intelligent individual. You'll be able to do the job. The difference is that after we go through our MCO training and have usually a mission or two, a posting or two under our belts, under an MCO that's trained and presumably has experience, we no longer have to look up everything or have to go find the answer to that. And because our collection of portfolios, I guess, under our program that we have to be experts on or that we have to manage is so diverse, you can't afford the time to know that, the 5 people that line up outside your desk are going to ask you one question each on HR, finance, contracting, security, and consular, and you need to be able to answer the majority of those either off the top of your head or with a couple clicks to be able to verify the information. So that's what I always tell my other program colleagues who are interested in an MCO job. I say, it's not that you can't do the job, you 100% can. It's not that our job is intellectually more demanding than anyone else's. It's just the breadth of information that you need to have a good, solid depth of understanding on in order to provide answers, instructions, and advice, in a timely fashion. That takes either training or experience, in my opinion, and usually both. So that would be my answer on what, if we're looking at people from outside the stream, what they need to understand coming into the stream. And maybe I'll turn it over to Marie-Ève to supplement that.
I can jump in. It's funny because my trajectory into the foreign service and the MCO stream was a bit different, as I did not join right into the training program. I did not do this. So basically, I joined the department in HR, and I knew I wanted to join the foreign service. I knew I wanted to be an MCO. And then I just had to work my way to get there. And in order to do so, I tried to get I moved position. And so I moved into an FPDS position. I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's not for me. And then eventually I managed to move into the C branch and started working consular. And then I realized I was a bit more passionate about this, and I got involved, and I was like, this is moving, this is interesting. And then I got the chance to go abroad, and I touched it a little bit more, and then I became a bit more versed into the finance and managing, how to manage the budget mission, support people, and how to do this, and to overview the budget, the mission, and I got interested into that as well. And then I was able to enter the stream and to become a real MCO. But then all that to say, the thing I always say to people is to be honest with themselves as MCO, because I think it's the best way to go, and to be honest about what you like and what you don't like, even though we need to be versed in all the different MCOs and property and finance. We all have a preference. But I think this is also where we do lack a little bit of information when we join the stream, and then we only get to that point when we get to experience the job in the field. So in terms of recruiting people, I think more information out there as per, what it means to work consular. And then we do this, the MCO CCS started doing this with the new recruits. And we're trying to say hey, this is cool. When you talk about it, it seems very exciting, but consular does get to you. So if you do this on a regular basis, you're dealing with issues, you're dealing with problems, you're dealing with people that are facing difficulties, it's draining. And so you have to be able to work with that. And when you're in the field, it's even more because they're there in front of you. And then you have to care for them. And so it's not for everyone. but people need to know what it really means, and they need to know how you feel. But then that transition into, well, this is not really what I want to do. Like, I'd like to focus more on the finance side of things. This is where I feel like I'm better. I know in some conversation, like Collin told me that, you know, he's doing consular and he's on the SRDT, but it's not really his favorite thing to do. I've been there, done that for 10 years. I'm ready for a little break into dealing into consular. And this is when I'm being honest with myself and transitioning and focusing on some other areas of the job. However, I still really enjoy the consular and the emergency management, but just being aware of what it takes from you and being honest about it. I think it's a first step, but communicating this and for the people to understand what it means before they actually jump into that stream is key, I believe. And I think some of that is lacking a little bit as people are taken by surprise and then they go on their first posting and it's not rare to see that they realize, oh, wait a second, I'm not sure this is for me. Or, you know, same with people in different streams and they taste a little bit of consular and they're like, oh, wait a second, I think I like this thing. I think I would be better doing this type of job. So I don't know if it answers the question, but that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
You'd ask what stream or where we could recruit such people. I don't think there's a university program that's going to produce MCOs. There's just not. Business would be the closest, I think, just my personal opinion, but you still need a whole bunch of other competencies or experience. It's really about the individual. I'm biased having come out of this industry, but I find that I came out of the hotel industry. I was a night auditor and then a guest services manager in a hotel before joining government, and then a year or two later joining the Foreign Service. And I find as an MCO, my experience as a guest services manager of a hotel was incredibly reliable because it was client service, it was property management, it was management in general. There was a lot of similarities. There was a lot of lessons I was able to draw on from that. And I actually think the funniest experience, or the experience that most taught me how to manage people, is when I was much younger, I managed a marina and had high school students working for me. And if you can motivate high school students who are only going to work because their mom and dad said they had to actually get the work done, you can motivate just about anybody to get work done. So my personal bias is to come out of the hospitality industry. I mean, the marina too is a hospitality industry job. That's where you learn to deal with people. And no matter what, honestly, probably for all streams, but for us especially, everything we deal with comes back to people, either internal or external clients at one point. Christiana.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hello. Hi, how's it going? My name is John, and I'm a part of the new wave of newly recruited employees. So I'll be starting my training as an MCO very shortly at headquarters. And my question to you guys is, well, first of all, thanks for taking the time for doing this. It's very helpful for those of us a little more in the dark who's just starting the program. Kind of like Collin, I have about 15 years in a competitive industry in the private sector. I'm a tennis coach and director, and also have an MBA. And so I feel comfortable with the people side of things. But my question for you guys is, as a new recruit, hopefully this is relevant to a few others on the call, entering the training program, what would you say are the key or the most critical competencies to have ahead of your first posting abroad? And I'm somewhat familiar, I'm in an employee couple and we've been on posting in Ankara, Turkey before. So I have some experience living at Mission, but yeah, I'm just curious as to your thoughts on entering formation, whether it's A branch or C branch, and I'm not exactly sure how things will go. Yeah, what are your thoughts on for people like myself entering fresh and never having worked in public service before?
I can jump into to start with, and then I know Collins will get into more of the competencies area. But for me, the thing I've noticed and the thing that was very helpful to me as an MCO going out. My first posting, I went as a single assignment and I had no experience whatsoever in terms of MCO. And so I was taking a job as MCO, the only MCO at the mission, and I had no experience whatsoever. And I was coming just with HR experience at HQ and other some like summit experience and stuff. So it was a steep learning curve for me. However, the thing I realized, and that was very helpful, the first is take the time you need to observe. And so because you're entering an environment that even though you do come with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience and other stuff, it is a very particular environment. And so I would just take the time I need to observe, understand, talk to my colleagues around, the other managers around, and just to seek some more information, have a better sense of what the situation is, the context, the needs, and this will prepare you in terms of how you want to approach this, and not to approach this as wanting to change everything, because that's also something that happens when MCOs get to mission and they're like, I'm just going to change things that are not working. And so to me, it would be, well, take the time to observe and understand the reason why this was put in place in the first place, and then if you do realize that this is something that really need to change for specific reasons, and you'll be very sure that this is what needs to be done. So that's one element that for me is key. And also, when you don't know something, because people get to you, they come to you for tons of questions, and then it's going to be related to a million topics. And obviously you don't have the answer to everything because you're just entering and you're just starting. And my response to this is, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but let me get back to you on this. And then after that, you just go on and you do your own research. And that's going to be taking a lot of your time at first, because there's going to be a lot of browsing on the intranet. You're going to be, consulting with some colleagues. I would suggest that you have a few MCOs that are willing to support you in your transition that you can reach out to and asking some advice. But take that time, and then you get back to them with an email, answering their question, putting the links, copying the information that is essential. This will be very helpful down the road than if you just try to shoot out an answer and in the end you realize it was not the right one, and it kind of puts you in a pickle that you have to get out later. So that's like my biggest advice into like getting into a position without really knowing and then being fresh. That I personally took the time to do this, and I made some mistakes, obviously, and I learned from them. And this is me learning from my mistakes and sharing this with a group that, will be entering in a similar context that I did.
Yeah. So you'd reference the competencies, and I think we use that because we know that's how we run promotion exercises, et cetera. And I could list off, all of them and say why they're important, adaptability and cultural proficiency and alliance building, et cetera. But what I'm getting from your question is more, as someone going out of the first time as an MCO, how do I succeed? So if that's more the question, I think that's a better question to answer really than what competency you focus on. Absolutely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So Marie-Ève touched on several of these already. Don't try and change the world the day you arrive. You're never going to get your staff behind you if you do that, the first day. So, to mirror that, show up, spend some weeks, months even observing, and you'll see things you'll want to change right away. Write them down, make a list. If there's something that's, and values and ethics infringement or something like that, and you can address it in the right way and show your team that you're able to address it, absolutely go ahead. If there's small little things that are just little tweaks to how you do things, absolutely. We're talking the major changes, the major initiatives, or the major things that you need to work on. I do a hit list. I actually call it a hit list, and I write it down at the beginning when I arrive, and I could show you mine right now that was here, and I break it down by the sections of the mission. So I have it by HR, property, and I spend the first months writing, and I just, I don't cross anything off. I'm not getting anywhere on my list. It's just growing. And the one here was 2 pages by the time I finished 2-3 months. But then you start working on it. You prioritize it. You say, which one of these are the easy wins? Which one of these are the things I want to work on because they're going to endear me to my staff? They're going to show my, how I want to interact with my staff. And which ones are the ones that are going to be a little bit longer term and require greater steps and need to plan them out, and you prioritize them within that context. also considering literally the priority to the mission. What is the most important to your mission success? And then you work through those. That's how my strategy for figuring out what I want to do when I arrive at mission. But to go to kind of the number one thing is your LES will have been there for longer than you, no matter what, typically for many, many years, and will stay there after you. And they can be your biggest asset, or, you know, they can be fighting against you the whole time. So come in, and that's one of the biggest reasons you don't change everything right away, but come in and talk to them. That's the number one thing I would give as advice, is talk to your LES staff, especially your supervisors or your managers, and ask them what's working, what's not working. You know, what would you like to see changed, and what would you not like to see changed? And, you know, if you give them the time and genuine interest in what they're saying, and the trust that, you know, they can say it, and it doesn't mean necessarily you're going to do it or not. It just means you're hearing, you know, what they feel. You'll find that, you know, they will create your hit list for you almost, because they've been around that long, that they'll tell you what they want to see change and what they don't. And some of the things we can't change, you know, they're going to say they want greater salary increases, and there's a conversation to be had there. You'll know going out how we do salaries, etc. Honestly, so will they, but they're going to ask every time. But do that. Trust your staff that they have years of experience that you can leverage. And you'll find just by asking and involving them in the conversation, they will want to work with you more, because you've come in and shown that even though you're, you know, it's a tough position. You come in as the manager, you come in as the supervisor or the manager, and that automatically creates a situation where you're in the, you know, the superior's position, and it can be very difficult for them to just, you know, be able to share or be willing to share what they feel without you creating that opening. So showing that you're not taking that position of, you know, me over you, that yes, you're the manager. That means the responsibility starts with you, the risk starts with you and stops with you. Be open to receive what they're, you know, what they're sharing, and you'll find that they will become your biggest asset, and they'll come to you when they see something, or they'll come and talk it out with you. I have, and I'm happy to share it with anyone on this call who wants to see it. In addition to that hit list idea, I have an opening interview that I do with all of my staff when I arrive, or all of my management level staff. And it is those questions. I explain how I manage, what my view on management is. I explain how I'd like them to approach me with issues. So to be honest, I tell my staff, if you come to me with a challenge that's in your job, come to me with the challenge, come to me with your suggested solution. And come to me with a couple of options you considered and are not proposing as the solution, and why. And most of the time, you'll have already come up with your own solution. You just need my support. You know, so I walk through these things with my manager, or with my supervisors, especially of my LES, when I first arrive, both to set an expectation and explain what, you know, how I operate, but also to show them this is a team. This is a team relationship, and we have to work together. And so I'm going to sit here and give you all the time you need, especially at the beginning, to tell me about yourself and how you want to interact with me as a manager. So those are a couple of the things I do at the very beginning. Another thing, when you do get to the program manager level, is go around and do the same thing with the other program managers. Go sit down with your trade officer, your political officer, your HOM. That one should be a little different, managed a little different as a conversation. But you want to ask, you know, what's working, what's not working? What would you like to see come out of the admin program, out of the consular program? More admin when you're talking to the programs, but, you know, getting that feedback from them. One, it allows you to create your hit list on what you want to do. And number two, it already starts that relationship where you're positioning yourself as a resource for them, or as something, you know, somebody that can be relied on to help with their issues. And that is one of the biggest ways I see, you know, one of the biggest
building the trust relationship at the different levels, the way that Collin just talked about it. So first will be your employees. And I also like to throw respect in this, because you will be taking over somebody else. And then, you know, it's easy to talk about, you know, they will talk about the person that was in your shoes before, and they will say some things, and they will say that. And in my view, like, you know, we all support each other and we all respect each other. And sometimes you hear things, and to me it's respect. And I said, well, listen, I you know, let's just focus on moving forward. Like, you know, I'm the new person, and this is how we're going to do things, and we're going to work together. And then, you know, you listen to what they express in terms of what they didn't like with the previous person, and then you just use this as your, you know, your little insight that, well, if you want to have a good relationship with this particular person, you may want to look into that. But You know, I don't like to get into the game of like, oh my God, you know, this is terrible what they did. It's like, no, you don't do that. Like we are a team with respect. And so trust relationship with your employees is key. The trust again with your program managers. You know, we kind of had a reputation of like being the police and putting, you know, refraining people from doing what they had to do. This is not what we are. And I like to see ourselves as allies and to help people get to the next level and to support them in whatever program they're delivering. And to me, this is expressed by thinking outside the box and trying to see, like, you know, even though technically what we're trying to do is not in line, anyways, there's always a way. And this is the approach that I use with my program manager, and this is the approach that I use with my home, because I know that they want to get something done and trying to you know, make sure that we stay in whatever is possible to do, but push it a little further so they see that I'm working with them to get this done. And that's going to take you a long way. They will come to you to get advice and recommendation. And if you don't do this, and if you play the roles like, no, you can do this, then they will keep you out of whatever they're doing. And this is not what we want for the program. Like, it's best to have a good collaboration at every level. And so you want to refrain from being the person who just keeps saying no, and then they just go behind your back, and then it just kind of creates another type of situation. So recommendation is to really have a good collaboration with your program manager, and, you know, putting yourself at the same level of them, because even though you're delivering a program that supports them, you're also delivering your program and you are one of them. So getting that respect from all the levels is key, I feel.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful advice, and thank you. Very, very helpful, and thanks a lot for your time.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for the question. And I hope there's someone else with another, because this is, you know, kind of fun actually to be.
Is Pam going to ask what's the most beautiful time we had and then the most crazy experience we got?
Well, I could ask that. And I noticed that Perry put a comment in the questions about having a list of 54 things that he loved about his job. So maybe we could get Perry to talk about some of that. But I was just wondering, from the point of view of another program manager, right? Like I'm FPDS, and so that's how I've been at missions. Do you have any tips or advice for us on how to make things go more smoothly, how to get along better with your MCO, and, you know, anything that you've noticed that, you know, people do right or wrong, or, you know, could make life easier for everyone?
I think there's a lot to do when it comes to personalities, of course, but I think in line with what Collin and I just said, like building that trust relationship at the beginning will be helpful in terms of the overall collaboration, but showing interest as well. Like, one thing I did here at the mission is I tried to create some engagement that would bring my program and their program together, and trying to maximize the results and the priorities that we're trying to push. And this brought a different angle that this particular program we're not necessarily used to work with. And so this is when they actually started to see me as an ally. And this really helped us working together. And now when we have events, like, I'm always kind of listening to whatever they're suggesting, and I take place into those meetings where they discuss the initiatives that are putting through. And I'm always coming with them, say, oh, wait a second, how about we don't, like, well, how about we do this? Or can we just do this? And so I try to include my program in the way that works. Obviously, like, if it has nothing to do with this, like, well, I don't do it. But, and I think that this really helped bring in that collaboration. And then we work very well together with all the programs in every ways because of that, I think. So this is just my insight. Get interested and getting involved from both ways, and spending time in supporting whenever there's a need. Like, there's two ways that you can approach the job as the MCO. You can just stay in your office, do your job, and wait until they come to you for answers, or you can observe and you can notice where there's a need to support, and you can be proactive in providing some help. And I noticed that when I'm being proactive and I see things, this is very much appreciated. And again, helps that collaboration, and they see me as an ally rather than, you know, just someone that they go see whenever they have a specific answer. So that's what I have to say about this. And sorry, Collin, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to jump in.
No, perfectly fine. I actually want to just add a piece to the previous answer, and then I'll touch on this one. So that idea that we're, for anyone who's an MCO on here, and it's at the beginning, which is specifically the question, it's okay to say no, but you have to explain why it is. And part of that explanation better involve, what have we looked at, what have we eliminated in order to get to this no? Have we really evaluated and come to and looked at all the different ways we can do something? So rarely, and Marie-Ève was saying this, rarely is it really no. It's, well, we can't do it exactly that way, or we have to look at alternative options. And often programs will come to you and they'll say, I want to do this. And you go, that's where it's an easy to answer. It's easy to say no, because you can't do it. I want to sole source $100,000 requirement. Well, no, you can't do that. But it doesn't, it shouldn't stop with that no. It's okay, why? Why do you want to source that? Or what exactly are we trying to, and if you're willing to have the conversation and sit down with your programs and talk about what exactly are they trying to achieve, usually somewhere along that line of questioning, you'll find, oh, they don't actually need to sole source a $100,000 requirement. They need something different that they didn't even know we could do within the contracting rules or within the HR rules or within whatever policy you're looking at. And that's our value add, is to know, okay, if we have this conversation a little bit more in depth, maybe we can get to a result. We can get to something that'll help you achieve your program deliverables. And to answer your question, from the program perspective approaching us, it's the same answer I think I would give from our perspective approaching programs. You need to give the benefit of the doubt that we are here as the MCOs to help, to create the infrastructure. This is very much what I view as the MCO role on the admin side, especially. Our job is to create the infrastructure for you guys as programs to deliver. That, like Marie-Ève said, that doesn't mean we're less than or more than or anything else. We're equal, but we're experts on a certain level. So approaching us with that benefit of the doubt that that's what we're there for, that we will help you, but that we need to engage in a conversation. And then at the same time, I encourage the MCOs to have that same viewpoint. Programs are out there trying to deliver on their program. They're not trying to break rules. They're not trying to go around MCOs. They're not trying to find a way, to do things outside of the box or in a way that we're not allowed, but they're trying to deliver their program. And we all, there's going to be bad apples, but we all are approaching this generally from the same stance, from the same, from the same team point. We are all one government. We are all one department. So giving the programs, and I'm speaking to the MCOs that are at the beginning of your careers that are on this chat, is give the programs the benefit of the doubt that whatever they're trying to achieve is because it's within their program objectives. So maybe, the $100,000 source is an easy one. Maybe that's what they're saying and they're pushing really hard for it. And that makes your first reaction be like, what is wrong with you? You can't do that. But there's nothing wrong with them. They're trying to do that because, presumably they have a deliverable that's linked to that. So if both parties can give each other the benefit of the doubt that we're both trying to achieve Government of Canada and departmental priorities and objectives, the conversation can start to happen where, okay, how can we get there? And it, I've honestly never found a situation where I've talked with a program manager about whatever they're asking me to do that could have been an easy no, that we either couldn't find an answer that satisfied what they needed or what they were trying to achieve, or that they were fully accepting of the no because we'd gone through every option. And, they knew they had to go back to the kind of drawing board and come up with a new way to deliver on whatever it was they were trying to deliver on. Does that make sense, Pam? And for those of you that are going out as new MCOs, or those of you that are MCOs like us and have had a couple years, feel free to chime in on how you approach that type of the interaction between programs and MCOs.
Thanks, that does make sense. And yeah, I'd be eager to hear from anyone else if they have other points. And also, I just recruited Perry as a talker, just in case he is willing to share any of that list with us.
I could. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
But before I share the list, it might be something for the MCOC to come up with in one of their newsletters. Maybe not a competition, but kind of like a word cloud where people can say, what is it that I like about my job? So back in 2009, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay as an MCO. That was a nanosecond of thought. And then my MCO hat went back on my head and I said, wait a minute, I love this job. And why do I love this job? And so I wrote down a list. It was very quick. I'm not going to read all my things. I'll just pick a couple off my list. Number 33, there's a learning curve from work and colleagues. Number 27, FSD 50 vacation allowance every year in those hardship posts. Number 24 was index pension. My family's covered. 25 was international schools for our children. 42, colleagues depend on your services as MCO. 46, challenging work and creative problem solving. 47, I'm not in a dead-end job atrophying away, and on and on and on. I mean, you just have to think that there's a lot of good reasons. And for me, this became my Thanksgiving moment. And every year I kind of look at my list and I say, yeah, this is a great job. There are negatives. People don't like maybe property management decisions that you may have taken, but I think just having this moment just to reflect on what a great job we have as MCOs, and maybe other diplomats as well, they can steal from my list as well, right? So
maybe I can add one element to this list that personally is what I like the best about this job is I never know what's coming my way. And just to give an example, last June, we hosted the Summit of America here in Los Angeles. And so we hosted the Prime Minister and a delegation, the Canadian delegation. And we're in LA, so obviously Hollywood land, we have a lot of VIPs and it comes with the job. And so we hosted a reception at the end of the summit at the official residence with the Prime Minister and key contacts, local key contacts. And obviously some of them are part of the industry, actors and all that jazz. And so you walk into this and then was helping with the reception. And then, you know, you find yourself amongst like all these actors and people that you see on TV. And then at some point, like I was supporting the Prime Minister for that visit, and I was kind of responsible to work everything around him and his wife. And then I was told at some point that a special guest, that he had requested a special guest to come. And I wasn't allowed to know who it was, and nobody knew, just for, you know, security reasons. And so I'm like, okay, sure, we'll be waiting. And so I was told, you know, at that time, wait in front of the door, a car will pull in, and then greet the person and please walk the person to the Grand Salon where the Prime Minister will be waiting. Perfect. And so I'm waiting outside and I'm like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's happening. And I'm like, well, okay. And then I see the car and then I open the door and I'm welcoming that person that I have no idea was going to come out of the car. And then boom, it is Barbara Streisand right in my face. And I'm like, oh my God. And I have to keep my cool. And it's like, oh, wow, welcome. And so like, here I am, the MCO, walking Barbara Streisand to the house and then joining a little intimate meeting with Barbara Streisand, the Prime Minister. And it's just surreal. And to me, I would not be exposed to moments like this if I would not be doing this job. And I see it as, you know, would I ever thought that this would happen in my career? Absolutely not. And so it's just, you know, it's just great that one day you're dealing issues with toilets and then the next day you're walking Barbara Streisand into a living room for a meeting with the Prime Minister. So the job brings so much. And you never know what to expect. It's always new. There's always new stuff. You always grow. And this is what I personally love about it.
Yeah, I've never met Barbara Streisand or anyone that famous, unfortunately. But my number one is the exact same. It's the variety. And the other thing we get to do, we almost always have the biggest team at Mission. And my favorite part of the job is management. I love managing people. In that one pager that I go through at the very beginning of my postings, one of the things I explain is my view on management, and that is that as a good manager, you should be there to eliminate the roadblocks, eliminate the challenges that prevent your employees from doing their best. And that's the part of the job that I love the most, is when my employees come in and say, I really want to do this, or I'm trying to get this done, but I have this issue. And I'm able to work with them to eliminate that issue, and they're able to leave my office, my desk, or wherever, and continue on with their work at the top level that they can. That for me is by far the most rewarding, and being able to watch people grow in their careers. So, you know, you can make a huge difference in the 2 to 4-ish years that you're at a mission in someone's career and someone's life, and just by being, you know, the good manager that you're trained or experienced to be. So, yeah, that's my favorite part for sure. We've got like 3 minutes left, I think, in this session. That flew by. Apologies for the technical difficulties at the beginning, which ate up a couple minutes, but we don't have any other hands up, so I'll throw it out once more to the group we are here. If anyone has any other questions or something else they'd like us to speak to, and if not, then we'll bring it to a close and appreciate everybody's attendance.
If I can just like add a line with regards to the MCOCC, Collin. We're here to support. So, you know, always, I know we're a group of very dedicated MCOs, and so we're always happy to, you know, get some questions coming our way or anything that has to do with the MCO stream. So if you talk to someone and you hear, kind of encourage people to communicate with us, because we do, you know, we do care, and we, you know, we want to help, and this is always useful for us to have a sense of what the questions are out there, and then anything else that we can do to help the community is always what we're looking at. So it's just like MCOCC.
All the way. And yeah, with that, if there's no other questions, Marty, we'll turn it over to you to bring to a close, I guess.
Thank you very much to our guest speakers and all our attendees. We're hoping at doing more stuff and picking more MCO brains as we go forward with Tradecraft Week and other information sessions. So thank you again. Look forward to speaking and hearing from everyone and seeing people at the other sessions.
Marty, could we just do maybe a small PSA about the session that had to be canceled? I can't remember. I think it's the Wednesday at 2.
Yes, one of our speakers for the Wednesday evening session, Ulrich Shannon, did have to cancel, but we're going to look at having him back at a separate time. And reminder for people here, we have our annual general meeting tonight at 4 o'clock Ottawa time, if you're available.
Yes, be there or be square. And then after that, we will we'll present the Randy Orr Memorial Award at about 5:45. So that should be a fun and happy thing to hear about what some of our colleagues have done for the Foreign Service community. So we've got a good group of people to recognize tonight. So I hope to see some of you guys or all of you guys there.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic Monday.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody, and thank you.
Bye.